Evening class. Wanted to take a few minutes, unlike my last presentation, but just take a few minutes to talk about the first assignment. Hopefully you all have started working on it, but wanted to give you some ideas as to what I like to see, and how to go about putting it all together. So, as I'm sure that you all have seen, it's the problem is low enrollment, very common. You're going to take all the information that you currently have and put together the three root causes for that low enrollment, and of course, then you're going to address those causes and putting it into a slide deck and then presenting it. A couple of real quick ideas first. And that is that when you're putting the slide deck together, the way to do that is you're going to be putting out a few bullet points and maybe a little bit of information behind each one of those bullet points, and then you're going to be speaking to each one of those bullet points. That's going to be essentially the paragraph that so many of us are tempted to put into a slide. You're going to be speaking to. If you don't do that, what's going to end up happening is that you will lose your audience. Your audience is then going to be focused on the slide. They're going to be reading that slide, and that's not what you want to happen. When you're up there presenting, whether you're presenting to a few senior management individuals or you're presenting to 200 investigators and their staffs, you want to be the center of the attention. You want to be the source of that information. You don't want that slide to be. You're going to be. And so that's going to be the way to do it. And it's important that you know that slide as well as all of the others, and you know that information better than anybody, because presenting is one of the greatest fears that we have, and it's very difficult for a lot of people. I've given dozens and dozens of presentations over the years, and I've probably sat through hundreds. And it's very obvious that it's very obvious who is able to present well and who isn't, who's confident in the information that they have and who is not. And if you're going to do this for a long period of time, it's important that you know how to present. I've seen people evolve from very poor presenters to very good presenters. One of the ways that we learn is you go and you watch presenters. And then you're able to discern and say, yeah, this guy is able to grab and hold my attention, while others are not. So you emulate those that do well against those and those habits that you see those who don't do poorly. You obviously say that's something that I'm not going to be doing. A big part of the presentation is being also self-aware and very cognizant of your own habits. You don't want to be stiff at the same time and never move your hands. You want to involve people. You want to make them feel open. Of course, in this case, it's just going to simply be a voice. But I can tell you that your own body mannerisms when you're presenting, even if they only hear your voice, are also very important, because it has a very strong effect on the tone of your voice and how you come across. You, in a real life situation, I would strongly recommend you don't ever stand behind a podium. If you have a laptop on top of a podium and you're utilizing that, or that's how you're controlling the slides, then stand to one side and reach over, and then you can control it that way. But don't stand, because you almost look like you're hiding behind it, and for those of us that are on the short side, your head just barely sticking up, and sometimes the microphone is right around your forehead or in between your eyes, and that's just you can imagine it's just a bad situation all the way around. Practice those slides. Be very, very confident with the information that you're presenting, and you'll do just fine. Remember that when you're presenting, especially to senior management, it's important that you get right to the meat. Do not go on and on and on. A whole lot of background is not necessary. Just tell us what the problems are. You may want to talk about how you got there. What are your solutions? Who's going to be involved? how long is it going to take, and how much money is it going to cost. And that's pretty much the information that they're going to need. Now, the solutions that you provide, don't be surprised that if I provide information that I have from personal experiences, whether or not they actually work or not. There's a lot of ideas that have been floating around for a long time, and I've tried just about everything. And of course, as you get to know people in the industry, and you spend time talking about some of these things, and you read about them, and so I'm going to be providing some flavor around whether or not some of these things work. So don't interpret those ideas or my comments as criticizing. It's just giving you a flavor of what my personal experience has been as it relates to them. Now, I may have criticism, but don't necessarily think that everything I'm saying is necessarily critical. Like I said, a big part of this class for me is just sharing my personal experience with you, and hopefully that we can all learn together. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I've had a couple of students who have called me or had questions, and I'm happy to talk with any of you anytime. I would strongly recommend that you text me, identify yourself, and then certainly we can talk, because I get so many calls from so many spam calls, and that's a whole other story. That I'm usually very hesitant to answer calls from individuals or numbers I don't know or don't recognize. You can also email me, and we can set up a time to talk. But otherwise, have a good evening, and I hope this was helpful.